We are in the 59th lesson in John's Gospel, and we are going to start John chapter 11. Been a long time coming. All right, and so I usually start the lesson with a few questions, and you give me the chapter and the event if you can. Okay, I'll give you the quote. You tell me where it comes from in the Gospel of John. All right, I'm hoping these are a little bit on the easier side for you all, but we'll see. But I've got an incentive here. Prizes, okay? Help with this. All right. So if anybody have a
Why
peanut,
don't we just hand it to your grandkids?
if there's a peanut allergy, let me know. Okay. So that which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the spirit is spirit.
That's Nicodemus.
All right. There you go. Throws it off.
Got me.
But you didn't say the chapter.
I said
Okay.
chapter 3.
Oh, you did? Okay.
All right, I'm sorry, Peggy. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink."
John's River.
Okay. You're not peanut allergy, are you? Okay. All right. Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk."
The paralytic blind man is lowered to the
No.
No.
It was the guy at Bethesda, the pool of Bethesda. I'm not the pool of Bethesda, the paralytic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a double whammy. Okay. What'd you
Wanted
say,
to
Judy?
cover all bases.
The guy that
The
was there for
invalid
38
Okay. You
years.
got to tell me the chapter too.
5.
5. Okay. Ron, what was the chapter for yours?
What's that?
What was it?
4, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. And then with Nicodemus, it was chapter
3.
3.
Cares.
Okay.
You didn't get
When
anything.
evening came,
I didn't get a
Your
prize.
wife anything.
well, she has these at home.
That's it's
Which
okay,
one do
dear.
you want? I
It's
stole
okay.
these from her.
It's okay.
Okay, all right. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea.
That was after the feeding of the
Very
5,000, which
good.
is chapter 8.
Chapter 6.
6.
Did I get it?
It's half a one.
No, I don't.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, but no thank you.
All right. At that time, the Feast of Dedication took place at Jerusalem. It was winter.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. You don't have a peanut allergy, do you? Okay.
The rest of the family
These are better than Snickers, I'm telling you.
All
All right.
does.
His parents answered, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind."
7.
No,
7.
it's the blind man,
He's
Chapter
talking to
7.
the Sadducees.
but it's not
7.
chapter 8.
7.
9, okay.
Yeah, when did you guess it? Now that's coconut.
Okay.
No, you're using your tools.
Okay.
That's true.
And finally, some of the people of Jerusalem therefore said, "Is not this the man whom they seek to kill? And here he is, speaking openly, and they say nothing to him. Can it be the authorities really know that this is the Christ?"
Isn't that the Feast of Booths?
Okay, or the Feast of Tabernacles, that's correct.
Chapter 8.
What chapter?
Saying chapter 8.
No.
9.
Chapter 7.
7.
Chapter 7.
Okay.
I don't know.
That was Caleb said it.
Caleb said it? Okay.
Or Adam said it.
Do you like doing reels today? Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Sort of like a girl. Okay.
Don't quit your day job.
Let's recap real quick. Last week we covered John 10:36 to 42, and in there we finished reviewing this idea of the blasphemy charge against Jesus. Remember that, and how how we looked at the case. He dissolved their case of blasphemy based on Psalm 82, because there God says, I'm calling you gods," and this is pertaining to people. And he also met the qualifications of being one who was consecrated for this position as well. Okay. In other words, these people who God had appointed, they were his representatives as judges or rulers and so forth, officials for him. And so Jesus certainly had that classification. We looked at the particular blasphemy case in Leviticus chapter 24, and we went through that, and you could see certainly that from the terminology in there, blasphemy in its blasphemy in its technical sense was not claiming to be God, right? What was it in particular?
Disparaging God.
Disparaging God, anything, Caleb?
Cursing.
Cursing him, right, exactly. Demeaning him, right? taking from him what was rightfully his, you might say, and making him lesser than he really is. And but we see how idolatry becomes blasphemy in the sense that you're taking from God, you're stealing from rightfully the worship that belongs to him, and so forth, the glory due him, and giving it to others. And we saw Jesus calling the Jews to reason just based on his works. If you can't believe his words, just believe that the works, let them lead you to the truth, the proclamation of his words, right? The Jews sought to arrest him, but Jesus, of course, escaped from their hands. Jesus leaves to go to the rural environs, and as it wasn't time yet for his crucifixion, and the area was where John the Baptist first worked, many came to Jesus and came to believe in him there. I looked at the end of chapter 10, just real quick. This is a diagram I stole from another classroom here, the map, and it shows Jerusalem right around here, basically. That's where all the action was with these the Jews, of course. And then the place where he's going is on this side, over somewhere around here, maybe even over a wider area out here. But we know he's avoiding Jerusalem for at least about the next 3 months, except for what's going to take place in chapter 11. He's going to interrupt his time over here with this short interim period where he's going to visit, as we know, and raise Lazarus. I don't think anybody, it's a shocking surprise, that story there. Okay. So, let's start in John chapter 11. What I wanted to do was also cover a little bit of the background material in here to help us appreciate what's going on and give us a little bit more understanding, in-depth knowledge of things. All right. So, now I do suspect that pretty much everyone has some degree of familiarity with John chapter 11, right? I mean, we all know it involves the raising the story of Lazarus. I couldn't think, have you ever seen a children's book on the story of Jesus that doesn't include the raising of Lazarus? I mean, it would just be, you wouldn't want to pick up that book, right? It would just be missing one of the primary things that we look at in the story about Jesus, right? But I was also wondering, have you had any examples in your own life, either teaching someone, teaching children, in fact, or just has the story of Lazarus, have you been able to use it in a sense to be able to convey who Jesus was to youngsters or to others, or even in your own life? Has it been something that has struck a tune with you in terms of the application of it?
I've taught children that, but just following the lesson and.
Yeah. I mean, have they ever, when you teach children, they're just sort of like, is it opening their eyes when they hear something like this that is like, wow, that's a pretty significant thing. Did you have something like that?
Yeah, on a mission trip, we did a skit, and it was at an orphanage,
Oh, okay.
and one of the guys got up and we covered him up. And
Oh, seriously? You went through as if you were
yeah,
going through that.
and they really liked it. The
Okay.
kids really liked it, and they had a good time. It didn't seem to bother them.
Okay.
Of course, it was overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of an impactful story
Oh,
about
yeah.
who Jesus is and
Made a big impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
Well, I mean, obviously, I taught this story to kids and to my own kids when they were younger, going through it, and just kind of hitting in on that. Number one, Jesus controls life. He can control life and death, obviously, but that the way his compassion was for Mary and Martha, and just like he already knew what he was going to do,
Yeah.
yet he still kind of had this whole gamut of emotions and seeing that Lazarus died, but which is just kind of interesting, right? That he knows the future and he knows what he's gonna do,
Yeah.
but yet he's just really like sympathetic and empathetic toward the grief and the loss, and just it's just a kind of an interesting.
And what you said, we're going to hit on a lot of those themes that you actually talked about, and we'll go into some depth on them. I think when we look at John chapter 11, it's going to take us down into some serious depths of despair. When you really look at the story and you live through the characters, it just gets to be that way. And so in other words, you can read it with just sort of a straight out objective, non sort of emotional way, but if you live it through the characters, it's really much more vibrant and it will speak to you, I think, a lot more. But it also takes us straight to the mountaintop as well when we get Lazarus healed. So it's very powerful exchange there in terms of going from way down to way up. And it's maybe second in the sense of the emotional swings in the scriptures, like only comparable to like from when Jesus, of course, is crucified to when he's resurrected. I mean, that's a tremendous swing there, and it's kind of comparable in a sense to that, but that's about the closest you'll get. I think sometimes we read the story so much, we're so familiar with it, that it loses some of its punch, its impact, right? The drama that it had. And but sometimes we never really may have even read it the way John wanted us to understand it. But it's teaching that forces us to appreciate some very stark truths about who Jesus really is. This idea, like you were getting to, is that he's very God and very man. He controls life and death, but at the same time he has a very passionate way about him in a sense of emotional characteristics. We studied a couple of years ago this idea of Christology as part of our Bible doctrine, and we looked at one word. Remember the Chalcedon definition? I won't go over the details of it, but it covered what was called the hypostatic union of Christ, which was he is basically has the two natures in one person. Remember that discussion? Two natures, both divine and human, in one single person. Okay. So some of those things we talked about, remember Apollinarianism, which was the idea of God and a bod. Do you remember that? God just hijacked the human body, you might say, and then used it kind of like we saw in Men in Black with the guys who took over the body there, so to speak. So we won't go over all the errors there, the heresies, but at any rate, we went over this characteristic of it was one person with two natures in them. How they carry out and conduct themselves, we don't know how it works. It's not like he's schizophrenic or anything in that sense either. But we'll see these two natures exhibited as we study the chapter. But this chapter also tells us, like you said, about the telltale providence of God as well, okay? And John 11 contains the 11th sign, the final sign of John's Gospel, remember? So real quick, review-wise, what were the different signs that John talks about? What was the first sign? Say again? Water to wine. What chapter was that? You remember?
2.
2? Okay. What was the second one?
The official.
Not yet.
The official son.
The official nobleman's son.
Nobleman's son, whatever it was. And he didn't even go there. He just said he would go.
Right, exactly. What chapter was this?
2.
4.
4?
Okay.
That was
yeah.
4? Oh, okay.
That's the way after God was
Okay,
married.
after the
Okay.
woman.
Then what was the third sign, Caleb? Now, okay, the healing and invalid. How long had he been an invalid? Do you remember?
2 years.
38 years, exactly. What chapter are we talking about?
5.
Okay. What was the fourth sign? Feed into the 5,000. Okay. What? Give me a chapter.
6.
6. Okay. How about the fifth sign?
Oh, walking in the water.
Walking on water. Okay. Now this is kind of more private, obviously. Disciples. What chapter?
6.
6. Okay. What about the next one?
A man born blind.
Man born blind. Okay. What chapter? Okay.
7?
9.
9. Oh,
I have. Okay. And the last sign is obviously
Lazarus.
Lazarus' grave.
And what chapter?
Yeah.
11.
Okay, chapter 11, right? Now, you'll know that in many of these signs, or they basically characterize something very significant that Jesus wants to emphasize on, okay? But also not always tied closely with these signs, But later on, Jesus talks about the I am statements, right? And just to go over those, an I am statement is in chapter 11. But do you remember anything about them? What the first one is? The bread of life, okay. And what chapter? Talking about the bread, feeding 5,000, it better be chapter 6.
Six.
What about the next one? Light of the world, yeah. And do you happen to remember what chapter?
3.
It's chapter 8.
Eight.
Okay. So this is that.
So the I ams didn't start until chapter 6?
Right.
Okay.
And what was the third one? I'll give you a hint. Say again. The door. The door,
The
okay.
door, or the gate.
The door or the gate. And what chapter?
10.
Good, very good, okay. Okay, and what would be the next one? Good Shepherd, excellent. What chapter?
10.
10. What would be the next one? Okay, say it loud.
The way, the truth, and life.
The way, that's
Resurrection.
the resurrection and life. Hang on, John. Resurrection
Which is this chapter.
and life. That is obviously chapter 11. Then, you said what again? The way, the truth, and the life.
And that's in 14,
Yes.
right?
Way, truth, life, yeah. Chapter 14. One final one. The true vine. Excellent, Abby.
And that's in 14 as well,
That is
right?
15,
15,
actually.
oh, okay.
Okay, so you see some of these were tied in with the I am, great I am statements. Obviously, Lazarus raised is the resurrection and life. Man born blind is to some extent tied in with the light of the world. The healing of the invalid, feeding the 5,000 the bread of life and so forth. So they're keyed in, but not as a one-to-one correspondence all the time. But at any rate, we're seeing that these were very important things that John emphasized.
What? I'm just getting one picture of the board.
Okay, all right. But these are very significant because when we look at these, they're called signs. Remember, they're not called miracles in John's gospel. Why is that?
Because they're meant to point to something.
Precisely. I mean, we think of miracles and they may dazzle you and so forth like that and give you this great awe and wonder, but miracles don't necessitate belief. Obviously, as we've seen already in John's, talking to the Jews and so forth. But the signs are meant to engender our faith, to stir up our minds and souls to the testimony of what has just occurred. There's this substantiate, Jesus has just done this miracle. Now he can say, okay, the signs point to some aspect about Christ being the light of the world. Obviously, even from the prologue, there was a lot of content in there about this was a light for all men and so forth like that. So they're keying into certain themes that describe Christ in some way. And the fact that there is no other way to eternal life. I mean, this is the only way. So these signs are provided to give you an understanding and to help guide our belief to who he is, right? And we know John's gospel is keen on narrating these miracles and then coupling them with monologues. So we know, for instance, the sign of the healing of the invalid there in John chapter 5, there's a lot of content in that chapter that deals with Jesus as a witness for God and that he has God's authority and so forth. He only does what the Father shows him to do and so forth. It's a long dialogue in there. And also the business that he may do with the man born blind is not necessarily a long thing in there, but the idea is there. He talks to it about these signs that, he's opening these eyes and all. And this is what makes John's gospel so very distinctive compared to the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they show you these miracles and all, but they don't go into the discussion of how they're so vitally important in our understanding of who Jesus is. It's not to discount anything with those Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but this just keys into us why this Gospel is utterly important in the sense of get a really deep understanding of who God is. That's why we do a lot of review in the class sometimes. It's just to make sure that we understand it and plummet steps. But the gospel, the synoptic gospels, they don't include the kind of content that we see that John covers in here, okay? So in the synoptics, I'm not saying, because you do have discourses in there. You remember the Sermon on the Mount. That's a pretty long discourse. Or remember Matthew 24, the end of the ages kind of talk, right? Or when he's woe to the scribes and Pharisees. There are discourses in there, but it's not quite the content that John talks about in order to see kind of who Christ is. So John's gospel, as you go through, it's almost sort of, it's a very progressive sense of gaining an understanding of who Jesus is. So he kind of goes through a path here. He goes through a trail for us that we can then walk on and discover more about who Christ is. Right? It's sort of a journey.
No, like, what was the order of the Gospels as they were written? Are they like...
Probably, most people hold Mark was actually the first, and Matthew and Luke kind of used some of Mark's material in their use in their
And so
gospel.
what time was that?
We're talking Mark maybe in the 50s or something. I think Mark was kind of early. Maybe Luke and Matthew in early 60s perhaps or something.
And then John was...
John could be as late as in the late 60s or as much as in the 90s. I mean, he's lived long. We don't know, but we're pretty sure his was definitely the last one.
Well, I wonder if, because of what you're saying, if he was kind of thinking that, they've been exposed to all this, now we need to know the whys and go a little bit deeper.
Right. I think that's why John didn't mention, there's hardly anything in John's gospel that the others have. They're sort of almost distinctively different, other than some things like the feeding of the 5,000, the crucifixion, of course, and so forth. But John really covers his own territory in this. Of course, the synoptics are a lot of the same, but they'll add detail that they each cover.
Yeah, he's made the case for Christ. We struggle, I think,
Yeah.
because he was saying how it was really kind of refreshing that all the accounts aren't exactly
True.
the same, because it doesn't happen in real life. It
Right.
just,
Right.
It never does. If they were all the same, you'd think they all got together and
Right,
you know,
right.
yeah.
And Mark, of course, was not an apostle. He was not one of the original disciples. But Peter was, and the understanding is that Mark was Peter's disciple, you might say. So Mark's account is Peter's account. That's sort of how
Luke.
it's understood.
What was Luke's account?
Pardon?
Who was Luke's account?
Mark's gospel is essentially Peter's account.
I know, but Luke, because
Luke, well, he would have been
He was an
got.
investigator. He was like, and he interviewed a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, that'd be a way to look at it.
Uh-huh. And he was writing to that guy Theophilus.
He was the Columbo. All right. So,
Yeah.
so now we looked at the distinctives in there, but so and it just I find it unfathomable in that sense that here was this incredible miracle, and John's the only one that covers it. It's like, sorry, I find it a little frustrating. I mean, it's just like, what's wrong with you guys? Don't you think this is good enough to get in your account? But I don't, it's the Holy Spirit saw fit that this was what Matthew, Mark, and Luke would cover, and this is what John would cover. So, but it is just a stunning event that you would just think it would be like the feeding of the 5,000. It would just be so monumental that everybody would cover it. But I'm not the writer, so at any rate, it just baffles me a little bit. So, other than the Passion Week, the majority of the Synoptic Gospels covers events of Galilee, up in the northern area there of Jesus' life and ministry. They don't cover much of Jerusalem except for the crucifixion. I mean, there's a little bit more in there, but essentially this is how it's looked. The Synoptic Gospels cover up in Galilee. John's Gospel covers mainly down in Jerusalem. That's sort of they're geographically sort of centrated in that way. Okay. We know that, of course, Lazarus dies and is resurrected to life in this chapter. Anybody remember how long Lazarus is said to be dead for? Say again? 4 days. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Were there any other cases of Jesus raising people from the dead in the Gospels?
Yeah.
Where? Or who?
The little girl
Okay. Okay, Jairus' daughter.
Jairus.
Yeah, exactly right. How about anybody else?
The young boy that's mom was.
The widow's son
Widow's son.
of Nain. That's correct. Right, those are two instances. The difference here between, let's say, Lazarus in that case is both of those were cases where obviously the girl had just died, basically. She was not buried, obviously. And also, in the case of the widow Nain, remember they were taking the casket to the burial site, and Jesus healed them right there. So none of them had this long, extended time of being in the grave, okay? This was like very close to when they had died or just died, okay? So this is a totally different situation where they were not buried, where he is buried, and it's not the same day death. Because generally speaking, I mean, the dead were buried pretty much the same day. I mean, unless you did embalming, but that was not typically, we were Egyptians, sure, maybe so. But in the idea of this part of the area over there, it's not a frozen tundra wasteland that would be in the refrigerator or freezer, and you're in a warm climate, things will decompose quite quickly, and of course the typical biological things will start happening, the body will decay, smell and all that, like so forth like that, and it's obviously diseases can become rampant. They don't have to be a microbiologist to understand the nature of you hang around dead bodies, you're gonna get sick, kind of like. So I think they would see that association. And it was just cultural norms that you wouldn't leave, just for disrespectful to see somebody, in their dead position and some rigor mortis setting in, and that, you'd want to put them, bury them so that they wouldn't be exposed in this sort of sense. It'd be honoring to them in a way. So it was something that you did quickly. It wasn't something that you lingered on, right? Interestingly, the Torah, the Old Testament book, the law in particular, there is only one case which demands same-day burial. Anybody remember? Want to take a guess at that? Sorry?
A body, something's not.
Yes, you're quite right. In this case, in fact, I'm going to have, I will start with Elizabeth this time. I'm going to go around the room, okay? So Elizabeth, Deuteronomy 20, where am I?
21.
Deuteronomy 20, this is funny, the sequence here. 21, 22, 23. Okay. 21, chapter 21, verses 22 to 23.
And if a man has committed a crime punishable by death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night on the tree. You shall bury him the same day. For a hanged man is cursed by God. You shall not defile your land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance.
Right, so it's interesting. There is no command to bury all dead bodies the same day. It's just this specific one in particular, and it had to do with the idea of hanging on a tree. You were cursed, right? Now, it's not part of today's teaching, but I just want to see, do you see a connection in here between this cursing and Jesus' death on the cross and so forth?
Buried the same day.
It buried the same day, exactly right. You see the connection in there. So, well, that's not our discussion, but I just wanted to point that out. That, you can have the body out other than this one, and we don't assume Lazarus was a criminal deserving of capital punishment here. But anyway, I think most of the time you got that body in the ground as fast as you could. Okay. Now there are other New Testament writings, and so you just told me these ones that we pointed out before, but also in Luke 20 to 23, Miss Wendy, read this. This is what John the Baptist sends messengers, and this is what Jesus sends to them.
And when the men had come to him, they said, John the Baptist has sent us to you, saying, Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? In that hour he healed many people of diseases and plagues and evil spirits, and on many who were blind he bestowed sight. And he answered them, Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, the poor have good news preached to them, and blessed is the one who is not offended by me.
So in there it says during the same hour, it's like these guys come and Jesus shows John the Baptist's disciples, and he does all these miracles to them to present to them, yes, I am the one. Now it didn't say in this particular instance that he actually raised people from the dead, but Jesus claims he had been doing raisings from the dead, so there could have been more, is what I'm getting at. But I don't think they were anywhere near as spectacular as what we're seeing again with Lazarus. Okay, so maybe none of them were buried or entombed by this point. All right, well, let's get started on the story. I forgot to turn the thing on there, so I'll just read. When you look at 1 through 6, chapter 11. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. As we look at this story in John chapters 11 and 12, we have just finished up chapter 10, and it was obviously the hostility of the Jews. And remember, this is the end point of Jesus basically having any more dialogues with the Jews where he's going to try and argue with them and contest with them, right? So now we go look at chapters 11 and 12, and in here is sort of a transitional period where in chapter 13, it's going to start the Passion period, okay? Now we're in Jerusalem, it's the last week and so forth, where he's washing the disciples' feet, he's giving them all this information, the Last Supper occurs and so forth. So in between, this is this last couple months in here that Jesus is an interim period where it's transitioning between these two periods of this confrontational dialogues and the Passion period. So it starts with, it says, now a certain man was ill, Lazarus, okay, of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. There's only two places where Lazarus' name is mentioned in probably in the Bible, but certainly in the New Testament. Anybody besides this one? What's the other incident? The parable is right. About Lazarus and the rich man, right? When that was just a metaphorical figure rather than a real person there. So there's only two cases. We already know that Mary and Martha are sisters. We find out here that Lazarus is their brother, correct? Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a mystery about the family. I don't know. We're not given any more details. Did they have spouses? I mean, they could have. Or were they basically, was it a family sort of living together of, older children, so to speak, and supporting each other? Were they bachelor and bachelorettes and so forth? We don't know. There's no information on their occupations or anything of that nature, but they certainly visit one another closely. So maybe they live separately, I don't know, and they just, hung together very closely most of the time. Also, I'm going to look at the idea of these Marys, okay? We talked about Lazarus for a moment. The various Marys of the New Testament, okay? This is, first we have, the first Mary would be, who do you think? His own mother.
Yes.
Exactly. Mary, the mother of Jesus. That's all I'm going to say. The second Mary, you may have heard her, Mary Magdalene.
Yes.
Right? You've heard of her. Magdala was a city on the southwest side of the Sea of Galilee. And in Luke chapter 8, 1 to 2, Nolan, let's read about Mary Magdalene.
Soon afterward, he went on through cities and villages, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. And the 12 were with him, and also some women who had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out.
So she had serious issues, obviously possession, 7 demons had come out. And then we now want to discuss Mary of Bethany. Okay, so we got Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and now Mary of Bethany. And she was a sister of Lazarus and Martha, resided in Bethany, a town 2 miles from Jerusalem. Mary Ann, okay.
Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. So the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her.
Nice way of reading. I like that. Okay. So we're getting a glimpse, obviously, even in this clip that you read there, of the different personalities between Mary and Martha, right? Just real quick, how would you describe, say, Martha? A worker bee. Very active. Correct. Any other attributes?
She was anxious.
Anxious, okay. Obviously, Jesus says we're anxious, so that's part. So it's sort of, you're always moving around, fidgeting. Maybe that's what I sort of think of. Anything else?
Trying to impress Jesus.
Oh, trying to impress him? Maybe so. I mean, I wouldn't say trying to impress him, but wanting to do stuff for him. Let's say that. Okay. Yeah. Louder.
A little
Uptight. I think that's a good way of describing it in a sense, because she's the type that, everything has to be right, you might say, the house and so forth like that, yeah. Just in terms, and another few characteristics, Martha, she was the one who invited Jesus into the house, okay? It wasn't Mary, it was Martha. I would describe Martha as an extrovert, okay? She's outgoing and all. Now, we look at that, she's probably maybe a little impetuous, basically, somewhat. I think I kind of relate her to kind of like Peter a little bit, just sort of speaking out. She's very practical minded, right? And just sort of blurting out without thinking necessarily. How about her sister Mary? How would you describe her?
Her head in the clouds.
Well,
in the sense.
a little bit of that, I guess.
Like John.
I like John. That's what I picked out in terms of who would she compare with in the disciples. Give me a few other characteristics of her.
She wanted to learn. She wanted to know who Jesus was.
Very much so.
Not to serve him, but to listen to what
Yes.
he had to say,
Yes,
because
yes.
she knew that this was important.
Yeah. A key word for her would be contemplative. She thought about things. I know it's a big contempt. She would contemplate. Who is this person here, right? And when somebody came to John, the disciple, she was very much an introvert, is the way I look at it. Martha's an extrovert, Mary's an introvert. But it doesn't mean that, she doesn't deal with people in that sense, but she doesn't maybe naturally outgoing, so to speak. You have to bring her into your circle, I would characterize her. So just remember, Martha was the one that invited Jesus to the house. That could be interesting, you ever have those situations where sort of like you end up being the person that invites someone into your circle of friends, and then another friend takes over that friendship. It's kind of can be sort of souring on you, right? But I don't think Martha was like that in essence. But sometimes we can be that way amongst ourselves, right? Okay, the fourth Mary is Mary, the wife of Clopas, and this is also in Alphaeus is the other name in Luke 6:15. Do I have it? No, I don't. Okay. I'm not going to read that so much. She was the mother of James the younger and Joseph, and seen together with Mary. There were 3 Marys at the crucifixion. Okay, who were they?
The mother.
Mary, his mother, right? Mary Magdalene, and it was Mary, the wife of Clopas. Okay, so interesting. It wasn't Mary of Bethany and so forth. That was at least it's not named. In Matthew 27:55. Let's read about the crucifixion accounts here. John, read the one of wife of. I'll read this one, 19:25. But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Okay, Seth, did I mess you up?
I don't have John 19:25, but I
Okay.
You
mess
mess
him
up
up.
I blew it.
everybody.
All
Sorry.
lines.
I'm
We're
sorry.
all-
Had it all lined up, and then I ruined it.
That's right.
55, 56.
Yeah.
You can't just jump in there and read things.
There were also many women there looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joseph and the mother of the sons of Zebedee.
Okay, so see the 3 Marys there. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Sorry, there's 2 Marys there, but another account we see the 3 there. Mark 16:1, Garrett.
When the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him.
Okay, and then finally Matthew 28:1. You got that? You got to read it loud, please. Okay.
Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb.
I'm going to be described as the other Mary, right? We have to assume that that's Mary Magdalene. I don't know. It doesn't say. Is that Mary his mother, or is that Mary the wife of Clopas?
It was the other one.
The other one. Okay, thank you. There's a couple other ones. I'm going to skip those. Mother of John Mark. Jesus did not interact. They weren't part of his life. Mother of John Mark, and Mary is mentioned as a member of the Church at Rome in Romans 16. So there are 6 Marys in there in the New Testament that are labeled in it. So this is a very popular name, obviously.
Where does it talk about Mary? It was in Luke about Mary Magdalene, and I thought she was a prostitute. That wasn't the case. I mean, I thought one of them was, and I thought she was the one that did the hair thing, but then it says
the
here.
anointing stuff we're going to look at when we get to John chapter 12.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, it's very interesting to look at the anointings and all. So hang on to that. It'll be a little while before we get there. There are 2 Bethanies mentioned in John's gospel. So maybe I don't want to make another point of misunderstanding, but there's one in the Transjordan region. So that was the area where John the Baptist was. So that would be a Bethany somewhere over on this side, over here. But the Bethany near Jerusalem was basically right here, and Jerusalem, read it right there. So it's 2 miles away. So Bethany was also kind of a popular. All right, so in John 1:28 it says that these things took place in Bethany across the Jordan where John was baptizing, and then John 10:40 he went away again across the Jordan to the place where John had been baptizing at first. Okay, and there he remained. So the second Bethany was a small Judean village on the southeastern slope of the Mount of Olives, 2 miles east of Jerusalem, the one we're in John 11. This is the village of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. All the Gospels mention this particular Bethany is mentioned in all of the Gospels, and is by name because it is associated with the last few weeks of Jesus' time on earth. The village of Bethany is inferred is in the story of busy Martha, and so even when we read it earlier, and this point here, remember when we saw introduced to Mary and Martha, it says he went to a village that was obviously Bethany in that case. Okay, so the other thing is don't confuse Bethany with Bethlehem. What does Bethlehem mean? Remember that? House of bread. Okay, and that was like David's birthplace and all, right? Whereas the Bethany means house of misery. Okay, not a lifting name, you know. It possibly means house of dates, but it means maybe house of affliction, and maybe it's sort of the idea of maybe a restorative place. So people would go there if they had issues with misery or something. I don't know exactly. I wouldn't name Misery Town. It wouldn't be the name, but anyway. But we're told that Lazarus was ill there. There's no description of the illness or the speed of his demise, and there's certainly nothing that insinuates, he deserved it in the sense of he did something foolish or ridiculous to cause it on his own. We're told that it was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair. This is verse 2 of chapter 11, whose brother Lazarus was ill. Now this is what we call a proleptic statement, in the sense it's anticipatory. But John writes it here, and he's going to cover it in John chapter 12. Okay? Why does he write it here? Why does he make note of it here, make mention of it?
To distinguish the Marys, maybe?
I don't think so. But I think he's building up something of it's a literary style, you might say, to add interest to what he's going to talk about. So it's a way of getting your attention, that you want to hear more about this idea of what's going to happen. It's an upcoming feature you want to listen to, okay? But it also is the idea of this early reference of Mary sort of ties the book together a bit. It's how they string it together. John just mentioned it. I'm not sure exactly why, but he definitely calls our attention to it. It's not going to occur for actually about another 6 weeks. Is what it's going to take. Okay?
You were talking about Mary being an introvert, but if we're talking about the same Mary here, that's not the actions of an introvert.
But it could be you talked about her as very, very contemplative, basically. She was her devotion to Christ, I'm thinking, overcame any idea of her being so introverted that she couldn't do it. It doesn't mean introverts lots of times, it's not that we know that they're not extroverts, not outgoing, but those who they do associate with, they're often very close to. They're very tied into those who are in their circle. That's how I would look at it.
And that because she wanted to sit at his feet and everything and learn from him, I think she saw it as more worshipful of him.
That was it. Sorry, I'm trying to fault. That was after he raised Lazarus from the dead that she did the will.
Yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the same. It wasn't in the same context.
It all means something different. You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we can maybe see the connection in there, in that what Jesus did would have enhanced her devotion to
Right.
him. in
Sure,
that sense.
yeah.
So you can see
The
that.
fact that Martha wasn't doing that
Yeah.
is a big deal. Because if you raised my brother from the dead, I would not be worried about his serving. I would just be like
Okay.
bawling, like
Okay.
grateful, thankful, worshiping,
And
in awe.
that might have been her way of showing her gratefulness.
That's not covered in the book of John, though, when they were serving, when she was serving and,
No, that's Luke. Yeah.
that's Luke, okay. So that probably occurred before
Yes.
this,
Yes. Yes.
them serving together. I mean, Martha serving them, and then this
Yeah, I'm
happened,
pretty sure
and
that-
then the anointing was after that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that to be the case. Things aren't as well time-stamped in the other Gospels in essence, so.
Because I think that established why Jesus was so close to them. I mean, it's
Right.
obviously.
Seems like he took some time. He had been with them. He developed over time. It seems to be a relationship in that regard. We'll discuss these different anointings and we get to John chapter 12. But it says, whose brother Lazarus was ill. This is the first time we learn about Lazarus, who is the sister's brother, right? It says in verse 3, so the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. So the sisters sent to him. They send a messenger, right, with this message. Didn't have, cellular towers and everything like that. Things took time to get out. So supposedly, if Jesus was in the area, maybe where we think he is, it might have taken at least a day to get this message, okay?
And where do we think he is?
We think he's over somewhere,
The other-
probably over on this side, over around here, and there over like here.
Okay.
Hard to pinpoint the exact location.
Do we know
and
how
they-
they met?
Sorry?
Do we know how they met? You know how he met the three of them or no?
No, not, well, we do in Luke chapter 8. It simply says that Martha invited him into their house. That's how the introduction is, right? So the sister sent him this message, right? And so is Lazarus alive or dead at this time?
He's
the time
alive.
No,
is-
he's dead.
He's
Oh,
alive.
well, he's
right?
alive when they
He's
sent for
alive.
him.
He's sick.
Dying on his deathbed, perhaps close to it, approaching it,
Very
but he is at least still alive, right? The one whom he sent is ill. That's present tense, right? So they said they don't know. Most likely, let's see, where am I? So how did they address Jesus?
Lord.
As the Lord, okay? Now, it's certainly more, I think, was more than simply a sir or a mister, given their relationship with him. Now, did they understand him as the Lord of, as God himself, so to speak? Not quite sure. They hadn't the fullness of that. It was maybe more than rabbi, I think, but certainly he was their teacher, but he was maybe in a relationship to them that was beyond rabbi and all, but they didn't understand the whole Godhead of him.
But yet they knew that he could heal them. So in one sense,
Right.
they were trusting that he was able to do these signs.
But they had seen miracles. They
Yeah.
knew, he was maybe Messiah, but all that entailed, don't exactly know, right? So let's look at what it doesn't say, okay? When they sent him this message, it didn't say, "Hey, Lord, please drop what you're doing, make this your priority, and boogie on over here right now. We need you here pronto." Did they send that message? No. Okay. It said there was no explicit demand or request. They didn't even say anything about what to do, right? It was just, he's ill. We leave it in your hands, right? So it does not say he whom we love is ill, okay? That'd be sort of self-serving, the idea that maybe Lazarus was maybe part of the breadwinner in the house. He was the main supporter of them. We need your help. I mean, we need this guy healed, okay, for us to basically survive properly. It doesn't say he who loved you is ill, does it? No, they're not drawing attention. Maybe Lazarus loved Jesus. It'd be sort of, if they say that, it'd be like saying, Jesus, we really went out of our way to support you and your disciples, right? We did all this financial support, and you gave you dinners and all this sort of stuff. Don't you think we get owed a little something here in essence? If they said he who loved you, a subtle hint there. Maybe you should love back in return. So no, it was none of that, right? And I think sometimes we walk away with the idea, in order for us, for God being God's favor, we have to do something for God, or we have to love God or do something for Him in order for us to gain His favor.
They also didn't say he's dying.
Exactly right.
Just
They
says
didn't
he
go
was
over the
ill.
details, right? Maybe partly because he knew, so to speak, that he would be aware. They didn't have to, in that sense. I don't know. But I think it was just a very simplistic thing. Leave it in your hands, okay? Do what you will, in
I
essence.
would like to know what the word ill, how it would, what it was in the
Yeah.
Greek or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it could have meant that the one that you love is dying, but they translated it as ill
Yeah.
instead.
I didn't do a word study on it. I don't know. Good question, yeah. I would assume it was certainly serious enough that they would have captured that thought in there somehow.
And I think, just sending the message means this is dire straits.
Right, exactly. You're being desperate, right?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're sending the message. So this is a Western Union getting over there on the Pony Express, and so it would be.
That's what, somewhat bothers me about translations. I learned that before. If it kind of meant dying, go ahead and say dying.
Right.
I don't know. And translations are like that. I think you have to really pray about what you're reading and hope you get the right
Yeah.
meaning.
It is
So-
interesting that it says the sisters, so both of them put their names on it or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't just Mary, or
Right.
it wasn't just Martha.
Exactly, yeah. Let me finish up with a couple thoughts here. So John's gospel brings to mind the truths in his epistles. Remember, he said the sister sent the message to one whom you love, right? It brings to mind in John's epistles, 1 John 4:10. In this is love, not that we have loved God, but what?
That he has loved us.
He loved us and sent his son to be propitiation for us. And 1 John 4:19, we love because
He first
First
loved us.
right. Interesting comment from Matthew Henry on this section of scripture. He says, "Our love to him is not worth speaking of, but his love to us can never be spoken of enough." Interesting
Amen.
thought. Okay. So, what would you have said in the message to Jesus?
Hurry.
Yeah, I would have.
Hurry back, Elise?
No, come back, we need you, we need you.
Okay. Yeah. But it's interesting that the women were just left it up to him, but he's ill. The one whom you love is ill, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop there. Any other comments, questions, or thoughts?
Just that John also refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus
That's a
loved.
very good point. I didn't thought about that. Yeah. Good, very good.
Okay.
Good point.
And it is interesting in verse 6 where it says, when Jesus heard it, he was ill, he stayed 2 more days.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that sounds almost callous.
That we
Yeah.
will go. We didn't get to go into that yet, but we will next week. Sorry, I didn't get as far as I wanted. Okay, well, let's pray. Lord God, we thank you so much for this day. Help us, Lord, to